everybody, and welcome to today's lecture. So, today we'll be looking at empathy mapping and the context mapping, and we'll see how these two are relevant to a design process. So, empathy mapping is where we map the emotions, the pain points, the feelings of our user, and this gives us a better understanding of the challenges they're facing, the emotions they're facing, and this really helps us empathize with them on a deeper level, because we want to really understand the challenges that they're facing, because we may not be facing those challenges. Our lifestyle may be very different from their lifestyle. So in order to understand how they are feeling, so emotions is a very powerful tool, and we have discussed in one of the previous lectures that how we all are emotional beings, human beings, and we need people, we need the support system. We have all types of needs, and emotional needs are also one of the most important needs. So everything is driven by emotions that humans do, and for that reason it becomes very important that what is the emotion that they are feeling, how can we translate that emotion, because we always want to feel something. So you may have experienced this, that sometimes when we are feeling low or we are not very feeling very positive about how things are going, we'll just go for some retail therapy. Now, why is it called retail therapy? It is not any kind of therapy. There is no counselor involved in this kind of therapy. It is just that when we purchase things, it makes us feel better, because now we own something. So it gives us that momentary thrill, it gives us that short lived excitement, and of course, the peak may get blunt soon after, but that momentary pleasure that we get, so for that we are probably willing to spend some money also, because we want us to bring out of that feeling of despair maybe that we are feeling. So that tells us that how we are just hardwired for feeling, emotions. Of course, we all want to feel positive and good at all times, but it may not be possible. We all have to go through all different types of emotions. So it becomes very important for the design team to understand that what kind of emotions are the user group, what are they feeling while they are encountering this particular, with this product, they're interacting with this product. Because in the best case scenario, in the, the perfect world, everything will work smoothly. We all will reach our office on time, the students will reach the class in time, 100% attendance will be there, everybody will get 100 marks. But this is not something which really happens, because there are many hurdles, like somebody's car gets punctured, they find a punctured car, so now they have to rush to the office, or the student's alarm did not ring, so they woke up late and they reached 10 minutes late to the class, or they could not probably study well for the exam. There was some disturbance, some construction was going on, they could not study at night, and then the student did not perform well in the exam. So we have all of these things happening around us all the time, because of which the world that we want to be perfect has a lot of imperfections. So but again, we can see that the emotion is the driving force here, and so to empathize with the user, the emotion becomes very significant in sort of connecting with the user, and then trying to give them the positive emotion that ideally they should feel in that given situation. So we can see here that we have these four quadrants. We saw them in the previous slide as well, that the says, thinks, feels, does, and the center is the user, where the user is. And now again, given the situation, all these four aspects will vary, but what we need to ask is, so what do they think and feel? So we are asking that what is the user in this particular given situation, what are they thinking and feeling. Now thinking is something which is going internally, feeling is also something which is going on internally. Of course, the body language tells us if the person is looking, the face is looking downcast, so we can determine that this person is not happy, they are unhappy, they are sad. So that is one way we try to note down their feeling and their emotions, or what they may be thinking. So we may translate that into some statement, maybe, for example. The other way is where they are directly telling us that this is what I'm thinking about this, or this is what I'm feeling right now in this situation. So these two ways are in which we can jot down in this section that what they are thinking and feeling. So like I said, one based on the exact information that is coming from the horse's mouth, the user is telling us exactly how they are feeling and what they are thinking. And the second is when we are interpreting it through their body language, their actions, their behaviors, their frustrations, they're throwing the object on the floor, or some other ways in which they are interacting with the product. So now here we can get more clarity in this section by asking questions like, you know, what really counts, what is really important, major preoccupations and worries and aspirations. So what are their worries, what are they aspiring for? So some of these keywords can help us understand really the feelings and the thinking that is going on in their head. The next is, what do they see? So what are they seeing? So they are seeing the environment, the friends, and what are the different market options that are available. So even when we are going on the, when we go onto the website for say purchase of say a mixer grinder, so we will not just go and purchase the first one that we see. We all, of course, we will maybe see what our neighbors are using. We may check with them, which one are you using? Can it grind, rice and help me make dosa, or can it only grind, just masala, things like that. And also going on websites and checking, so what are they seeing, what do they say and do not. So their behavior towards others, attitudes in public, their appearance, all those things matter. And what do they hear? So what influencers say, what boss says, what friend says, and all of these things, what they are seeing, what they are doing, what they are hearing, and what they're thinking and feeling. So when we put all of them together, so then we get two things. One is the pain, which is the fear, the frustration, and the problems that they are facing, any hurdles they're encountering. And the second is the gain, which is the reverse of it, which is what is it that they want and need, and also measures of success, and how can we convert the obstacles into a more positive experience or remove those obstacles. So how do we create the empathy map? So the first step is know the user and the goals. So it is really important to understand our user and what are their goals. So now, because we have, you can see the four quadrants here, and we have placed the person, and in case we're working with the persona, so we created say 32-year-old say academician, and now we are looking at what they are seeing, doing, and feeling and thinking. So we'll place their persona in the middle. And now we have to understand this user that is in front of us, and we have to understand that who is this person on the map, and what is it that they are feeling. Because if we are able to gauge these four sections for this particular person, then that will be applicable for many other academicians who are similar to this one at hand, and this solution can be applicable to those people as well. So in order to cater to their needs, we have to understand our user very well. And what is the required outcome? Then two sides of the coin, what's outside and inside. How is the attitude of the participant? What is the user saying? How are they behaving? So if you see the graph on the right side, so now if we say this is an example and the link is there, you can visit this to see this in greater detail. So now here, if the user wants to buy a TV, so now we can see in this particular given example, the user is saying that I was expecting something different. And then they are also saying that where should I start? So again, depending on where they are in the purchase journey, they may have, some kind of wants. Or I want something reliable. What size is best? What brands do you like? So maybe they're also asking some of their friends that what brand do they like, or what do they think, what is their opinion on this particular TV. And then they are thinking that why is this so hard? So maybe the purchase process is hard, or the comparison is hard. Or do they think I'm stupid? So they're also thinking that maybe the manufacturer, the distributor, the person who's selling them the TV, they feel they are stupid, they are not taking them seriously, or just not answering their questions clearly or in a transparent manner. Too many acronyms, I want something awesome, wasting too much time. Then they're feeling overwhelmed, they're feeling maybe excited if they have found the right TV, then they're excited, but they're overwhelmed with all the options that they are getting, and they're anxious, they're unsure who to trust, so they don't know whether I should trust this seller or the other seller. Both are, sweet talkers, both are saying good things about their TV brand, which one should I trust? And then does, so what do? So they make a list of pros and cons, so they are comparing maybe the TV or the facilities or some advantages that different sellers are giving them, maybe warranty on one TV, but maybe some speaker free with the other one, so they are trying to weigh it. So they're comparing the products, they're asking the friends, and so they are observing in the store. So we can see that when we map all of these things, so we get some of their very thoughts, like, do they think I'm stupid, something which people, how are they putting it across, that's important, because they are acknowledging that some behavior of maybe the person in the store, or the way the information is projected, so some information is hidden, maybe date of manufacturing is hidden on the package, and this is an old model that is being shown to the user on the pretext of being the new model. Of course, the user is doing the research and they probably know quite well that this is not a new model, and so on and so forth. So the point being that this, when we put all these says, does, thinks and feels, then it tells us a lot more about our user than when we started off, and it is really important for us to really understand their pain points. If we have multiple personas, so depending on, like, this TV, we want to look at the teenage group, we want to look at the somebody in 20s, somebody in 30s. So for each of those personas, we will have a different map altogether. Then we will create a new fresh map for each of those different categories that we have. So know the user and the goals. So here we are also looking at what does the user hear, how does the user's connections influence him or her, and what they think and feel, what are the main pain points and gain points, what are the frustrations and challenges, what are the goals and dreams. And when we are making all these different empathy maps for all our different personas, so we then get more in-depth understanding of a user group. So now, continuing in this how to create empathy map section, so we come to the next point, which is two sides of the coin. So what's outside and inside? Now, the on one side we have the outside, which is what the user is observing. So this is, say, they are observing. In the diagram we can see that they have certain knowledge, and now they are looking at the reality, and maybe they're comparing it with the knowledge that they already have about this particular, say, product, for example. And then this is the one which is the external or the outside, and the next is the internal thoughts, which is what is going on in their, the dialogue which is going on internally within them. So now this is an example, this is the empathy map canvas, and we can see here that again we have who are we empathizing with. So here we need to be very clear that who is this person we are trying to understand, and then what is the situation they are in. So given a particular situation, what is that situation, we have to understand the situation, and what is their role in the situation. So how are they placed in this situation, and what are they to do in this particular given situation. The next is what do they need to do. So what do they need to do differently, and what jobs do they need or want to get done. So when we are making this canvas, so and answering these questions really tells us, it takes us another step forward towards and empathizing with our user, because now we know their scope and limitation. For example, that in this given situation, what would they want? It will help us create that scope, that this is what they will want, and then there will be something which is beyond this particular service or situation which they may want, but of course it will not be provided to them, so that will be our limitation. So when we ask what job do they want or need to get done, so in that given situation, so then that helps us get more clarity. What decisions do they need to make? How will we know they were successful? So then how do we measure it? How do we know that the job that they wanted to do is successful? So how do we quantify that? Next is, what do they see? So what do they see in the marketplace, like we were discussing in the previous example? What do they see in their immediate environment? What do they see others saying and doing? What are they watching and reading? So this also tells us that what are they currently involved in, what is their whole scope of what they see, what is the level of awareness that they have. Next is, what do they say? So what have we heard from them, or what have we heard them say? What can we imagine them saying? So now, like we were discussing, in that the what they are thinking and feeling. So now when it comes to what do they say, so one is a literal statement that the user can make. They can make a say, they may say, I am frustrated. But now that is one way, and the other is like the next question, what can we imagine them saying? So even if they're not communicating verbally, then what can we imagine them saying in that situation, given the way they are interacting or behaving in that situation? And what do they do? So what do they do today? What behaviors have we observed, and what can we imagine them doing? And of course, then in the center we have, what do they think and feel? So pains and gains. So what are their fears, frustrations and anxieties in the pain section, and what are their wants, needs, hopes and dreams in the gain section? So together, this canvas, it places everything out in front of the team. And we of course have point number 6 on the left, which is, what do they hear? So what are they hearing others say? What are they hearing from friends, from colleagues? So this gives a complete picture of the empathy map, and more the details the better it is, because the better understanding of our user we will get. So now this context mapping is basically a method for gathering the knowledge about the setting in which items are used by user while doing this contextual research with the user group. And this is a generative technique, and which facilitates a deeper understanding of users' knowledge, emotions and aspirations. So this method also involves active user participation in idea generation, providing a foundation for the design process. And so it is important that the design team and the organization understand the wider context of change surrounding the design challenge, and external factors like political, social or any other societal challenges that may be there in that situation. So they all will impact the potential solution, and also the internal changes which are within the organization, they will also hamper or enhance depending on this particular outcome of this project. So the context map is a visual understanding, or it can, we can say it is a scan of the environment that will help the team understand what factors affect the success. So we can see here, this is the context mapping, and we can see the procedure here, where the first step is the positioning of the context map on the wall. So where we place it on the wall, where the team can gather around it and they can put the project name in the center. Then the next step is where silently the team will brainstorm. Individually, they will brainstorm the various trends and factors that apply to the different segments of the context map. So they will use maybe post-its and stick it on this map, and or maybe marker pen, and they will write one trend per post-it note. So one trend on one note, and then that will go in that relevant section. And also the number of words that one should write should be minimum here, but it should make the other team members understand what they are trying to say. And now this is the process where we are silently brainstorming. So each one is writing down their points and then sticking onto the map. So we are not communicating verbally, and that is why determining that how many words to use, the minimum number of words but sufficient words, so that the message is communicated to the team members. And then the team shares their post-its and places on the context map within the respective sections, and then they explain each of their post-it notes when they have created their post-it notes. Now they will explain while they are placing on the map. And if there are in duplicate post-its, it may be possible that two people came up with the similar kind of the idea. So then we will remove the duplicate post-it notes, and then we can also create a new subsection within each section. If we identify that more subsections are required, that can also be done within the section. And then the red dot stickers, I hope you remember we discussed the dot method, that how the team can tell, determine which idea is better with the help of these dots that they put onto the different ideas. So similarly here the red dot method is used. So they identify the key risk areas, and the green dot stickers, so they will identify the potential opportunity areas. So now the team will place those red and green dots. So that will tell what are the challenges and what are the potential opportunities. And finally, the team will write any key questions or discussion points on the post-it notes, one per note, and then post them in a separate area, and they can be used later. So they can be stored for the later use. Now, this is like we saw the empathy map. So this is the context map canvas here, and we can see here that we have the personal context. So what is happening in the world around us or the design team, and so it is important to know what is going on in the world around us. We need to know what are the latest technologies or latest changes or trends or competitions or some new methodologies, what is going on. So that is important to know. And maybe some rules have changed, maybe some new regulations have been imposed, so that makes it very important. Then we have your competitors context. So it is equally important, because what are they up to? Maybe we see the competitor moving in a very different direction, and we'll wonder that why are they moving in that direction? We did not anticipate that particular area for growth. Maybe they have heard something that we have not heard yet. So let us also explore it. So keeping an eye on the competitors also can be very beneficial. It can also give us some kind of a warning that if suddenly the competitor has stopped doing something, it can also give us a warning that maybe they have stopped this particular feature or this facility or whatever it may be, because maybe it will not do well in the future, right? The next is your team's context. So now to grab the attention and to tug on the emotions, so we have to make them understand the robustness of the idea to the potential investor. So how and for to do that, we have to again touch the emotions, and at the same time we have to grab their attention. So that needs to be done. So the business model canvas can be used to demonstrate real business rigor and to show that we have covered the fundamentals. Then the client's context is important. So as an extension to the empathy mapping, so this considers the world that our target customers live within. So now we have to see their world as well, the client's world as well, and this highlights the ways in which we can provide them value in unexpected ways. So for us to deliver them something of value, we have to understand how their world is operating. And then finally, we have the business context. So this is foundational for the strategy design, because the strategy is really important to align on the crucial context parameters that need to be, considered for the growth of the business. And this can be very helpful way of considering the options for strategic partnerships and how to grow and how to make more partnerships, and ultimately which will help the business to grow. So what is going on in the context of the business world also, so that also is important for us to see. So the cultural probe technique, now this is a technique which is used in the HCI area to gather qualitative data about users' lives, values and thoughts. And this is an approach where sometimes when face to face research is impractical or it's not appropriate, in those scenarios this cultural probe technique is very beneficial. And so this consists of prompts, questions, and instructions. And here we can record the thoughts and feelings, and we can say that this is an extension to the more traditional way in which we document our experiences, like keeping a diary or a journal that we have discussed in the previous classes as well. So let's take an example that maybe there is a design team which wants to improve the transportation network of a city, and they want to understand how the commuters feel and experience the daily travel routine, which will help them understand their pain points and challenges, and how they can then improve this transportation network. So rather than asking about their experiences through interviews, now they will use the cultural probe method. So what they will do is they will give them a probe kit. So this consists of a diary. So this is a diary where they will put down their emotions, a disposable camera, so where they can take pictures, any impactful situation that they come across while they travel, so they will take a picture of it. Then postcards. So the postcards will have certain prompts, like, draw your ideal bus stop, or write a message to your future self during rush hour. Sometimes we do that in diary also. We tell our future self that things will be fine, or go get that award, or it could be different things for different people. So similar to that, the postcards here are giving a nudge to the user that draw the bus stand that you would like to use. And then stickers to map out the level of comfort, frustration, or joy on different routes or modes of transport. So some stickers will be given. They can smileys, with the help of which they can visually communicate whether they are feeling positive, neutral, or not very positive about it. So now these probe kit will be given to the commuters, maybe to students, to elderly people, and different groups of people who are using this public transportation. And once they come back, they return, then these probe kits are analyzed by the design team, and they try to see any kind of patterns or emotions that are similar amongst different people. So if there are similarities, if there are overlapping emotions, then they know that something is working or something is not working for a larger group of people. So the images, when they bring back, so they will show maybe crowds, like people standing, not getting a seat, unable to sit, maybe somebody with a child is standing, and somebody, the driver has applied brake, and everybody is falling towards the front of the bus, so they are taking some photo like that. Or maybe long waiting lines at the bus stop, the bus is not arriving on time, they are waiting. And images, and then their diary entries. So what kind of triggers are they facing? Maybe they're stuck in the traffic for too long, maybe the bus is going very slow, maybe it is not stopping at all the bus stops, and certain observations like that. And the postcards, so wherein they are maybe writing that, oh, I wish I could also bring my coffee, or I wish the window would allow me to see the scenery outside, or whatever the emotion the user is feeling at that particular point in their travel. So this is a way in which it documents the entire journey of the user in that particular context. But rather than recall during an interview that how they feel during a journey, so this gives us a better understanding when the photos and the diaries and the emotions, they come back for analysis. So then the team can actually feel the emotions pouring out of this probe kit. So with this, we come to the end of today's lecture, and I will see you in the next class. Thank you.